Hey, I'm Dr. Brandon.
Hi, I'm Skyler.
Nice to meet you, Skyler. Today I'm going to be doing an assessment of your spine from about the base of your head down to just below your belt line. If I need to expose that area, is that alright with you?
That is.
Alright. Before we get started, I'm going to check the table. Okay. I'm going to have you take a seat here facing this wall, and please remove your shirt. Okay. Check your cervical spine. Go ahead and relax your head. Okay.
All right, Jack, what was your segmental contact point?
Okay, my segmental contact point in the SI joint was the medial aspect of PSIS, and the lumbar and thoracics, I contacted the midline of the spine, and in the cervicals, from C2 to C7, I contacted the articular pillars, and in the atlas, I contacted the lateral masses.
What was your line of drive?
My line of drive in the SI joint was P to A, slightly medial to lateral, about 45 degrees. In the lumbar spine, my line of drive was P to A. In the thoracic spine, lower thoracics was P to A. As I moved up, the mid-thoracics was I to S, and the upper thoracics was S to I. And in the cervical spine, lower cervicals was P to A and S to I, and as I moved up, I went I to S in the upper cervicals.
Okay, and what was your assessment of in-play?
My end-play assessment, I was feeling for cheesy feel and sponginess.
Okay, did you find any restrictions?
I did not find any restrictions on this patient. Okay, for this next assessment, I'm going to do a further evaluation on your low back. If I can have you please lie down on the table face down. Okay.
All right, Jack, what was your segmental contact point?
Okay, my segmental contact point was the groove between the ilium and the sacrum in both flexion and extension.
Okay, and what was your line of drive?
My line of drive for flexion, I contacted the ASIS and moved it in an anterior to posterior direction, and for extension, I was testing anterior rotation of the ilium, and I contacted the leg and lifted it up to test extension.
And what was your assessment of in-play?
My in-play assessment is anterior glide and extension of anterior glide of the ilium and extension, and posterior glide of the ilium and flexion means that this patient has a healthy SI joint. Okay, for our next assessment, I'm going to further evaluate your low back. If I can have you take a seat right here on the end and face that wall. Okay, can you go ahead and cross your arms for me, please? I'm going to go ahead and just bend forward. Okay. And I'm going to rotate you towards me. Okay. And bend towards me. Okay. Same thing, I'm going to rotate you towards me. And okay.
All right, Jack, what was your segmental contact point?
Okay, my segmental contact point for flexion was L2, L3 interspinous space, and for rotation and lateral bending, it was the right and left sides of spinous processes of L2 and L3.
Okay, and what was your line of drive?
My line of drive for rotation and lateral bending was lateral to medial, and with lateral bending I also had to do slight inferior to superior.
And what was your assessment of in-play?
End play assessment was a spongy end feel, and this indicated a healthy joint. Okay, for this next assessment we're going to do further evaluation of your mid-back. You can go ahead and have a seat here on the end and face that wall. And can you please bring your left arm behind your back? Thank you. Okay, you can go ahead and put your arm back now. Okay, now can you cross your arms for me, please? And I'm going to just flex you forward. Okay. And I'm going to rotate you towards me. And bend you towards me. Okay. On the other side. Same thing, I'm going to rotate you. Okay. And bend. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to bend and rotate you this way. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Jack, what was your segmental contact point?
Okay, my segmental contact point for flexion was T8, T9 interspinous space. For rotation and lateral bending, it was the right and left sides of the spinous processes. And for the ribs, it was the costal angles of both right and left T8 rib.
And what was your line of drive?
My line of drive for rotation and lateral bending is lateral to medial, and in lateral bending there was also slight inferior to superior.
And what was your assessment of in-play?
Oh, also for line of drive for the ribs, it was superior to inferior for depression and inferior to superior for elevation.
And
My end play was spongy feeling and feeling for movement of the vertebrae and ribs. And I did not find any restrictions on this patient, therefore this was a healthy T8, T9.